Welcome to the Sun Today for February 28th, 2025. This is going to be an update to Solar Cycle 25 now that we have the February data in hand, and we have some exciting news. More on that later. Overall, solar activity was relatively quiet. The sunspot number was about 120, which is the same as it was yesterday. We do have two new sunspot regions on the Sun. Flare activity, we had 9 C flares, no M flares, and 6 coronal mass ejections, which is up slightly from previous days. The solar wind speed had increased quite significantly to over 700 kilometers per second. We have a G1 storm that has gone on for now 33 hours, but it looks as though it's beginning to decay. Let's take a quick look at the sunspots. There were 12 regions on the Sun, 2 of which were new. That's 4009 and 4010. There was one other new region on the Sun just off the east limb, marked with a question mark here, but has not been numbered as yet. We're about to lose a couple of regions over the limb today, so therefore we will probably have a dropping sunspot number. One interesting thing is, if you look at the background image, which is an ultraviolet image taken at about 1,000,000 degrees, particularly off the west limb, note those large loops that span the equator. Those are transequatorial loops and are evidence that there's connection between the northern and southern hemisphere, causing decay of the sunspots as they reconnect. This is vital for the progression of the solar cycle. Many people do not understand how the solar cycle is measured. They use something called the smooth sunspot number. This is a 13-month running average of the sunspot number, and I've plotted the most recent points here. Because it's a 13-month smooth, that the most recent data point we have is for August 2024. And that point is much higher than any other point during this solar cycle. So that sets a new high for the cycle at about 157. It also moves the date later for the maximum until August of 2024. And I suspect this will continue to go up, at least slowly, for the next few months. So the solar cycle will be 157 at least, and that's much higher than the previous cycle, which was 116, and much higher than was predicted by those pushing a grand solar minimum. You might recall that my prediction back in 2020 was 165, and that is looking really good at the moment. We've had an ongoing geomagnetic storm for the last 33 hours, intermittent between the G1 and a normal KP index, but it looks as though it's beginning to decay away now. So that's probably over. As I say, that was a result of that coronal hole we talked about a few days ago. On the right, you can see the evidence for this in the auroral arc. It's much weaker than it has been for some time. The solar wind, however, is at 700 kilometers per second, which generally means the interplanetary magnetic field is unfavorable for reconnection with the Earth. That's the reason we're not getting a geomagnetic storm with these high solar winds. Yes, we had flares, but a lot of little ones. You can see them here. They're all medium level C flares. The X-ray background has remained about the same at the equivalent of a C2 flare level. Until we get some new growth in some new regions, then this picture is not going to change much. We did have 6 coronal mass ejections recorded by SOHO. That's compared with 5 yesterday. And here's a movie of the SOHO LASCO C2 plus C3. The C2 is the high resolution image in the center of the image, and the C3 is the low resolution but large field of view in the blue around the edge. The dark feature here off to the top right is the occulting disk's supporting arm. It's always difficult to make a forecast, particularly when the Sun is in some sort of transition between high and low states or vice versa. The sunspot number seems to be continuing to fall, and so I suspect flare activity will be lower, i.e. we will not get any large M flares, for example. Solar wind will remain at high velocities for a while, at least over 500 kilometers per second. and the geomagnetic storms will become weaker or less frequent. Once again, thank you for listening. If you enjoy these videos, please pass them on to friends or neighbours or relations who you think might benefit from understanding more about how the sun works. And so until next time, stay safe and goodbye.